You're going to encounter a wide variety of problems that involve rational and negative exponents. So here's a smattering of those. Let's give them a try. First, let's evaluate 64 to the 2/3 power. Now we could write this in a couple of different ways. We could write it as 64 squared to the 1/3, or the cube root of 64 squared, or we could write it as 64 to the 1/3 power squared. Because of the power law of exponents, we can write this in either way. However, this bottom one is a little more convenient because the cube root of 64 should call to mind 4s. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 is 64, so that's 4 cubed. So the cube root of 64 is going to be 4. So we can just write this as 4 squared, which is 16. Now if you want to verify this, you can just go to your calculator and enter 64 to the 2/3 power, and you can see that the answer is 16. Now our next problem is 64 raised to a negative power, the negative 5/6 power. Now just like we did with the last problem, we can write this as 64 to the 1/6 and then raise that whole thing to the -5th power. And 64 to the 1/6, well, that looks like 64 is a power of 2. So if we take 2 times 2 times 2, do that 6 times, I think that's 64. So 64 is 2 to the 6th power. So the 6th root of 64 then is going to be 2. So we can write this as 2 to the -5th, which is 1 over 2 to the 5th, which is 1 over 32. And you can check that on your calculator too. 64 to the -5/6 is something like 0.031, and if you just check that against 1/32, that's 0.031 also. So that's the same thing. Alright, our last example in this video is a different kind of problem. X to the 5/4 is equal to 32, and our job is to find x. So in this kind of problem, what you're going to do is raise each side to the reciprocal power of x. So I'd have x to the 5/4 is equal to the 32, and I'm going to raise both sides up to the 4/5 power. Now what this will do on the left is the 5 divides into the 5 to give us 1, the 4 divides into the 4 to give us 1, so we just have x on the left side. X is equal to 32 to the 4/5, and now we're just solving problems like we just did in the first two examples. Well, 32 is 2 to the 5th, so the 5th root of 32 is 2, so we have 2 raised to the 4th power, which is 2, 4, 8, 16. So x is equal to 16. And just to remind you, 32 to the 1/5 should equal 2. So that's the trick to these problems. Raise both sides of the equation to the reciprocal power of x.